Welcome back to our little Oscar-A-Thon. We are doing the 1970s today, which is probably my favorite decade of horror. But we are here with Cinematic Sterling, Right Dude, and Zach, and possibly other people that would be joining us today. But that's kind of it. Let's just get right into this. And first things first, as we go in a reverse chronological order. We're at 1979, and the first movie we have to talk about is the Frank Langella Dracula. Now, this I feel like is an obvious one, because it's got all the hallmarks. Period piece, based on a play, which is based on a book. Frank Langella was pretty much very well known at this point. Count Dracula's story was a classic, so I feel like this was a very obvious choice, even though I've heard mixed things about it.
I've never even heard of this one.
It is, yes, it was relatively decently popular in its time, but yeah, it's yeah, I feel like having a Dracula movie is pretty much standard because it's just such a classic story, and this was
Donald.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, I think this could be something that they really would be up for, because it is like, of course, Dracula was really well known at the time. I haven't seen this movie, but I have heard of it through James Rolfe's video, where he was talking about like which Dracula adaptation was the most faithful to the book.
Yeah,
great video.
Yeah,
most definitely
glance,
is.
I was thinking this version was the Christopher Lee version everyone talks about, but I guess it's not. But shit, if Donald Pleasance is in this, then shit, I'll give it a watch. I'll watch anything that dude is in.
But yeah, Dracula, it's overall a classic. And next we have Alien, another classic for its time. It was beloved for the time. It took like an old B movie and pretty much reinvigorated it for a modern audience. It's got a stellar cast. It really went against the grain of what was kind of going on in horror at the time. It didn't really follow like a proper 3-act structure. It very much like kind of diverged that, where like it felt like the first half of the movie was like one entire first act, but it like actually worked. All the characters were properly developed, so you didn't really know who was going to live and who was going to die. They all followed like proper protocol and everything.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it was obvious that Sigourney Weaver was gonna." Well, you know that now because there's been an entire franchise based around this goddamn movie.
exactly.
So it's like,
I mean, I was gonna say, like, it wasn't that common back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still there, but not as common as it is today.
Yeah. Even Dan O'Bannon stated he did not want a woman for Ripley because he didn't want it to be like the final girl trope. And he tried to, because like everyone had like generic, pretty much unisex names. It wasn't until the sequel that it was revealed her name was Ellen. So I believe it was that. So yeah, it's very much, again, this is just kind of self-explanatory. It's just a great, overall amazing. It's just like a great movie.
Classic.
It might not follow into what they like, but it's just so classic. It's so great.
Yeah, I remember, honestly, my my older brother actually introduced me to this movie back in, I think when I was like 10 or something. So yeah, it's a great movie. What can I say?
It was written, paced, and done in a way that doesn't follow the final girl structure. Like Ripley is the last one standing, just because.
Yeah, there's no like rhyme or reason to it. That's why it's as good at it as it is
And there's
because
not
it
a
just
and there's not a single character that's like, oh, you don't care about them and all that. It was a
Yeah.
great cast.
Oh yeah.
I
love,
would say the only one who sucks is Veronica Cartwright. I'm glad that fucking bitch died. She was fucking annoying. But outside of that, great stuff.
saw it in theaters. I saw it in theaters this year, and it was absolutely incredible.
Lucky bastard.
Still one of my absolute favorites. Like, this movie to me is just perfect.
Yeah, the only Alien movie that got released in 2024 that matters. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Now we have Nosferatu the Vampire. Show off your tat,
Yeah.
Devin. Show off your tat again, Devin. You love showing off that tat, you fucking
I
smug
will-
bastard.
Yes, I do. I'm still proud of it.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
But yeah, Nosferatu the Vampire, Werner Herzog, and Klaus Kinski. It's a classic combination, although a very dangerous combination, because Klaus Kinski was a pile of shit. But
He sure
he
was.
still did do. He was proudly in 2 Dracula adaptations, not just this one. Klaus Kinski was Renfield in, I believe, the Jack Palance or Jesus Franco version.
I think it was Jack Palance.
I think it was the Jack Palance version. And he now has graduated to Dracula himself because I believe, from what I remember, yes, they use the original names here despite it being Nosferatu, which is I'm kind of glad that the Robert Eggers version is going back to the changed. It just feels like
I am too.
It feels it
Because
works
what
a
I
lot
see,
better.
because yes, this version is technically Dracula, but when I see this, I don't think, oh yeah, Dracula. Even though yes, he is Dracula, this version will always be Orlok.
Yep, exactly.
It's so funny. We got 2 Dracula movies in the same year.
Yep.
Isn't
I
it
still
its own
stand
thing?
by.
Nosferatu? Like, isn't Nosferatu its own thing separate from Dracula? Or
Well,
No,
no.
it's based on Dracula.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It
the
was
original
It was the
1920s
attempt for it to be
Nosferatu,
a
it was
copyright-free version.
right?
Sorry, Rob.
Exactly.
Um,
I was going to bring that up. Is that they were going to? It was based. The Nosferatu 1920s movie was based on the Dracula novel, and that was before the Bela Lugosi movie even came out. So it's just they couldn't use the name Dracula or anything.
I
Yeah,
guess
Bram Stoker would have threatened to sue them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, his wife ordered all copies to be destroyed, but they did manage to find one. Ironically, when F.W. Murnau did his own adaptation of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there was no problem with it. And ironically, despite no order of the Robert Louis Stevenson estate to like destroy everything, it was totally fine. It went through okay. Has become now permanently lost. Go figure. The one that got a destroy order didn't, but the one that didn't did. Go figure. But
I stand by. This is hands down one of the creepiest fucking movies I've ever seen. Like the perfect way to describe this movie is atmosphere.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it in years though. I gotta catch up on all the Nosferatu movies for the new one.
Yeah.
I did that recently.
No, all 3. The the
Great.
silent one, this one, and the all-time best one from the Graveyard Shift.
Wait,
Oh.
Zach. What about Shadow the Vampire?
I'm watching that later. I'm watching that later this month.
I think I'll
Shadow of the Vampire. Shadow of the Vampire is fucking amazing.
I'm gonna watch Shadow of the Vampire.
But yeah, I've seen all versions except, well, even though Shadow of the Vampire is about the fictionalized behind the scenes of it, not actually an adaptation of Nosferatu, but that's technically the only one I haven't seen. So yeah, Nosferatu, we all love it. We all think, Werner Herzog is a legendary director. Klaus Kinski.
This is my favorite vampire film of all time, even though I haven't seen it in years.
But
I
yeah,
still stand by.
I don't know which one I prefer, the original or this one. It's tough. I think I might prefer
I'd say the
original
original.
a little bit more, but it's still great.
Yeah, I would prefer the original one a little bit more. I think that if they were if they were focused more on the original 1920s movie more so than the Dracula novel, I think it probably could have been maybe a little bit better. I mean, it's still good though. Don't get me wrong.
It's a great movie, but it's just
still awesome.
Weird that they use the,
like he's not even Count Orlok. He's Dracula.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, on to the next one. We have the Amityville Horror. Now, I know in this day and age, the Amityville Horror is pretty much a very hated movie because, well, after this, it was revealed that the whole based on a true story thing was complete and utter bullshit. But for the time, it was still relatively well liked. A lot of people seemed to like it. It was very popular. So I decided to include it. I mean, it does have a good cast. It does have some creepy moments here and there. It's still a pretty, like by today's standards, it's a pretty terrible movie. But back then, it was like the scariest movie ever and one of the greatest of all time. I mean, but it has since fallen to the wayside. But I'm trying to for the time, I'm trying to imagine the Academy in 1979, what they would do. And I included the Amityville Horror.
Yeah. I was gonna say, even though we look that this movie is not very good today, but in 1979, like the 70s was all about like the things with like demons and possessions thing, and we'll get to a big one later on. So but it's like they were all into anything dealing with like the supernatural. During in the horror 70s, so I feel like this probably could be something that they probably could go with. So, I mean,
it's all right.
I mean, I know we're thinking like at the time, and yeah, I could see why they hate it, but I gotta say, I fucking hate this movie so much.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's not very good. I'll admit that, but I'm saying
like only one scene I like that is admittedly pretty creepy. The get out. Like that whole scene is pretty creepy, but that's terrible. It feels like 50 times longer than it actually is.
Oh god, I was like literally pressing the fucking skip 10 seconds button by the fucking end of the movie. Like in the last like 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, I'm so done with this. Let's fucking go. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore.
Like one of the worst.
It's so funny that pretty much it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say not one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but just when it comes to pacing, just one of the worst paced movies I've ever seen. I'm serious; it feels so much more than it actually is.
Although weirdly enough, the 2005 remake is even worse.
I actually kind of like the remake.
Of course,
it's not great, but it's just better done.
Although I will give it this, it was before Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool in every single one of his movies. That's when he actually like tried to be an actor. So that was like kind of okay.
Ryan Reynolds. By the time the remake came out, that was at a time where he was mainly known for comedies.
Yeah, So,
but yeah,
it's over exaggerated compared to the original, but both of them are. And the 700,000 fucking remakes and reboots and this is one of the
Amityville Karen.
Yeah, illustrious franchises I've ever seen. I will say the sequel, not too bad. It was actually quite enjoyable. Fucking weird, but it was enjoyable. More so than this crap. But yeah, Amityville Horror at the time, great. Not so much now. Last one is Legend of the Mountain. Nobody knows about this movie. It is essentially a Japanese horror film, and it just like I believe. Hold on, let me look up the director real quick. I'm gonna have a bunch of his movies on here, but like every single one of his movies I've seen. I haven't seen it, but like I mean like no, it's not his. Okay, it's another one, but. I just saw a lot of really good reviews for this one, so I'm like, all right, might as well include it. I was kind of trying to find various ones, and I'm like, all right, this seems like kind of an interesting addition, so I decided to include it. I don't know much about it. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it. It's on my list now, but I saw some really good reviews on Letterboxd, and I saw some really good reviews here and there. So I'm like, all right, let me include it. So yeah, that's pretty much the basis of that. Then we move on to 1978, which is a damn good year.
Fucking awesome movie.
Magic, Devin, you've seen this. Please explain why you think this would be included for Academy Award nominated film.
Great movie. I think they would definitely like this being a lot more psychological than being straightforward horror, and it's also it is Anthony Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, Anthony Hopkins had like 10 or 12 minutes of screen time, and he still won an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, still a great, Richard. It's directed by Richard Attenborough. You have Aunt Margaret, Burgess fucking Meredith.
Mm-hmm.
You got a good cast, good cast. Good crew behind this, and it's just an overall like very like creepy movie.
And you had William Goldman writing it, and he's a fucking amazing writer, so that's also a good thing to have as well. But yeah, it's on my list. I'm gonna see it hopefully in the next couple of days. But yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about this movie, and
I'm just reading the description, and honestly, it's just like I'm just thinking of that Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
or like
I don't know
Night
if
of the Living
I don't
Dummy
know
or
if
something.
I don't know if this movie was inspired by that or something.
Possibly. I mean, you also
wouldn't surprise me.
You also have Night of the Living Dummy, which could have been inspired by this as well, or inspired by the Twilight Zone episode. So there's that too.
Wasn't like a very young Hayden Christensen in that episode?
Yes. It was.
Yeah.
Yep. Gets
it was the
possessed by a
third one.
dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gets possessed by a dummy. But yeah, 1978's Magic, great stuff. And then I decided to go for this one, Isor Mars. It got relatively mixed reviews when it first came out, but it was described as like an American giallo, and it was written by John Carpenter, and it had like definitely some like really interesting vibes. It had, Irvin Kershner directed it. In fact, this was the movie that caused George Lucas to hire him for Empire Strikes Back. He saw a rough cut of this movie back in like 76, 77, and because of that, he wanted Irvin Kershner for Empire Strikes Back. So we have this movie to thank for that. It's probably the best thing that this movie did. I mean, it does have a stacked cast. It does have, Faye Dunaway and Tommy Lee Jones and all those people. And it has like an intriguing mystery, but it did get kind of mixed reviews. It wasn't like totally, it wasn't like totally beloved, but I still think there was enough merit there that warranted like a nomination. It had like kind of like a prowess to it, I feel. But I will say, lastly, one of the funniest things about this movie is, so what happened was there was 2 scripts that John Carpenter wrote, The Siege and Eyes, which The Siege became Assault on Precinct 13, which he directed. And then he had this, which he sold off to a studio. And so Irvin Kershner got it. And he said, he was pretty much like, this fucking John Carpenter guy, he doesn't fucking know how psychological horror works. This guy, he fucking doesn't know anything. What the fuck is this shit? Like, we don't know the killer. You got to know the killer. And he was like pretty much like hated the script. So it went through like 9 different script rewrites. It went through like a whole bunch of different writers and all this other shit. And this movie failed at the box office and it was lukewarm critically. Meanwhile, what did John Carpenter make in 1978? Oopsie
masterpiece.
So yeah, Zach, why don't you take it away, buddy? Why don't you just fucking beat your meat? Because God knows
I may praise
done it enough.
the David Gordon Green trilogy to no end, but John Carpenter's Halloween is always going to be my favorite horror film of all time. Like everything down to the pacing, the suspense, the build-up, the cinematography, the score, it's all perfection. It's minimalistic with the blood, but that's part of what works about it.
Mhm.
It's more about the suspense and the tension. Michael's a great villain, and Loomis is a great protagonist, warning everybody about him. It's just, yeah. It may sound like bias, but I swear it's not just because of bias. I could totally see this winning best horror film just because of how impactful it was.
I don't think it would, but that is up to the viewers. So we'll see.
And
Yep.
the friggin' chase scene at the end, still the scariest thing I've ever seen in any horror film. Like when she's at the end with the keys, the keys. Sees Michael slowly walking down across the street. Scariest shot in any horror film. Fight me.
I think we can all agree on that one.
But yep.
But Zach, I guess you can say,
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
That is both a perfect description and still an understatement. But what's everyone else got to say?
I mean, many of us have said time and time again, not quite as much as Zach, but I mean, this movie is beloved for a reason. It should have stopped after this movie because it was perfect the way it was. Didn't need a sequel. Didn't need an explanation for its ending. It was great as is, but unfortunately, Mustafa Akkad is a greedy son of a bitch. So, unfortunately, we got a franchise out of a movie that didn't need a franchise. But outside of that,
we got Halloween 4 out of that. Are you really going to be that angry?
yes. We also got Halloween 5, 6, H2O, Resurrection, Kills, and Ends.
Come on, Devin. We got Halloween 4.
Yes, we got Halloween 4. But we also got Halloween Ends. Not fucking said. Well, yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of my this is actually in both my top 10 and my favorite movies and favorite horror movies of all time. This is
honestly a classic for a reason. So there's let's just say there's a reason why everybody watches this movie around Halloween. Let's just say like any horror fanatics will always watch this movie or at Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's a classic. It's not. What else more is there to say?
Yep. Honestly, we could just move on. Halloween. It's amazing for what it is. Next is Dawn of the Dead. One of the best zombie movies of all time. Yep. Not my personal favorite from the Romero trilogy. I would go with Day of the Dead on that one. But Dawn of the Dead is definitely, I think the Academy would like George Romero.
Yeah.
Like specifically, he would be a director that they would, like. So they're like, all right, let's have him. But and they would nominate him. But I think they would also like the satirization of like consumers and like mall culture and the mindlessness of the masses kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they would be into that.
It's an interesting one because this, I don't know if this sounds weird coming from me or not, particularly with this film, but Dawn of the Dead, this original one, has the greatest, most subtle use of commentary that I've ever seen any horror film do. It doesn't beat you over the head with what it has to say about consumerism. Yeah. It's just very subtle.
Yeah.
Remember when movies were subtle? Good times.
And I mean that. The greatest, most subtle use. More so than
I don't know if it's the most subtle.
And honest.
Well, I mean, it's just my opinion, but that's what I think.
But Rob,
and I mean, it's and the whole. I was gonna say, and then the whole zombies in the mall thing. It did, and like that. What that did, like I mean, I know that we're supposed to be talking about like why the Oscars of that time were going, but I was saying like this did inspire like a lot of video games with the zombie genre, trying to invade a mall kind of thing.
Left 4 Dead and all that.
Left 4 Dead, things like that. But yeah, I would say that this is since they do since they probably would love George A. Romero, since they would love, like you said, satirization. This could be something they could be up for. Plus it's got Roger from Kenan and Kel.
Yes,
plus,
Ken
the-
Foree is his name, Rob,
I know.
but
the
yes.
Academy loves their commentary, so zombie stuff aside, I could see them nominating this easily.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead, beloved, great. Moving on.
Better than the original, or than the original.
Better than Night of the Living Dead, is what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then lastly, we have. 1978 was a fucking stacked year, guys. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Speaking of remakes, but yeah, this was. I wouldn't say it's better than the. I would say it's just as good as the original. It's it's so starkly different, but holds on to the core of what makes Invasion of the Body Snatchers work. So, it's got a great cast. You have like early, like kind of you have an earlier Jeff Goldblum. You had Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams kind of in their prime. Then you had like Leonard Nimoy post Star Trek, but pre Star Trek the motion picture. So you have like such a fucking amazing cast and Veronica Cartwright, who would later be in Alien. It had such a great cast, great effects, an ingeniously great story. I think it does so many different things from the original movie, but it like does them just as good. Like the first one was mainly just Kevin McCarthy. The original was just mainly Kevin McCarthy, but everyone else. But like the fact that you have like a group here on the run of their lives, so you have that, and it's just like, and even though Devin hates this nowadays, the villain essentially won, and honestly, I kind of I dig it. Like the way that ending shot has become one of the most, if not like the most
Oh yeah,
iconic ending in horror film history.
exactly.
So it's just a great movie, and I feel like the Academy would just kind of respect that. It homages what came before, but does its own thing. It's got a really good cast. They love Donald Sutherland. I mean, who doesn't love Donald Sutherland? He was a great, terrific actor. So I think that they would possibly go for this. It's just such a great movie. Like they would just I'm kind of running out of excuses at this point.
Like honestly,
it's a fucking great movie.
I mean, it is an awesome movie. In fact, hot take, I think I probably would prefer this over the original.
Me too.
It's really close. I love like the atmosphere of the original a little bit more. I think Kevin McCarthy's a little bit more charismatic as a lead than Donald Sutherland is, which is saying a lot because I think Sutherland is an overall better actor. And like there is like a certain like simplicity to it that I really liked of the original as well. I like the narration. I like how it's like all about him and him discovering this. So yeah, I think it's just, I feel like it's almost apples and oranges. It's like it's at best a companion piece to the original. Not even like you almost can't even compare the two. They're just both so good at what they do. And honestly, I feel like I need to rewatch them. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. But yeah, next we move on to 77. We have Eraserhead. Devin,
Yes.
You're a David Lynch fan. Why don't you explain this one for the crowd at home? All one of you.
Eraserhead is a movie.
Yeah.
It is a movie. It's a weird as fuck movie. But I don't know. This movie, I do like try to watch this at least like once a year. Because this might be weird, but I can understand what David Lynch was trying to do.
Yeah.
With this movie. You know, talking about, you know, the fears of parenthood. You know, and I have a feeling that the baby looks like a mix between E.T. and a snake.
I think it was supposed to be like a baby lamb or something, and it came out wrong. David Lynch has given like a different story each time, which is fair because it's David Lynch. But they claimed it was real, and they like buried it, but they also claimed it was at one point it was fake, and then it was not. Who knows what it actually is? So we'll see. But like Eraserhead, it's definitely a weird movie. Like it's David Lynch. It's like that's like, you know, that's par for the course. Jack Nance is like so like weirdly like he's just so weird and innocent, but like, you know, it's just like it's just a perfect fucking movie about like the perils of parenthood. That's like what it is. But
Because
it like
the baby's supposed to represent like a
but
kid
it
with special
makes
needs.
sense. Yeah, it's weird, but it makes sense. Like you could see like the structure of it and what, you know, unlike a lot of avant-garde movies that don't make a ton of sense, this one like it makes sense. Like okay, it has some weird things, but it's like we get it. Like in the end, we get it. So yeah, I think yeah, David Lynch did a lot of greatness with this one.
I do have another thing to say about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I heard a stranger. We're having chickens. Tiny damn things. Smaller than my fists. And they're new. I'm Bill. Here, look at my knee. Look at my knee. It's so fucking weird. I gotta love it.
Yep.
You know what they say? In heaven, everything is fine. That ending, though, holy fucking shit! Like, I agree with James Rolfe. That's the most disturbing part of the movie.
I don't remember much of the ending. I don't remember a ton of this. Like, I remember bits and pieces here and there, but maybe I have to rewatch it. But yeah, Eraserhead. I don't know if they would actually like David Lynch, but maybe in this like change day and age, in this what if scenario, we would get, you know, a love. The Academy would get a love for David Lynch outside of, you know, Elephant Man. But the next thing we have is Suspiria. I think this is genuinely one of the. It's probably arguably the best giallo of all time. It's arguably Dario Argento's magnum opus, his masterpiece. It does so much right. It's the whole basis is that it's a dark. It's like a Grimm's Brothers fairy tale. It's like a nightmare. It's like nothing makes sense, but everything makes sense. It's just one of those movies that kind of just has to be experienced. And I feel like with how many times they've nominated in this what if Dario Argento, I feel like they would most definitely nominate this one. It just makes the most sense. It's a great fucking movie, and I think they would give it the respect it deserves. And yeah, I think Jessica Harper is such a great and sympathetic lead. All of the there's like I love the stilted like nature of it. I like how like I love all the like dubbed dialogue, which became like a symbol of giallos. And I think it like adds to the overall like fever dream nature of it. So yeah, I think Suspiria was definitely, you know, is just a prime level great fucking movie, and I think, you know, Dario Argento deserves all the love for it. Better than Dracula 3D, right?
But I haven't seen this, but I want to. I did hear the remake was like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
2.5. I don't know what it is. I cannot get into this movie. Like, no matter how hard I try.
Then try harder. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I did like the remake, but my only issue with the remake was it was too goddamn long.
I mean, I haven't seen either of these movies. I'm with Zach. So, but maybe I will sometime this month.
I just wish Mark was here to, you know.
Is it on any streaming service?
I should be.
Maybe I might look it up later.
I will say this, even though I don't love this movie, I love the theme song by Goblin.
If you have a subscription, it's on Amazon Prime.
No, okay.
So yeah. But yeah, next up, Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. This was Jodie Foster's big claim to fame. I plan to watch this later this month. This was one of those movies that like got a lot of love behind it, like because everyone was like, "Oh my god, like Jodie Foster, she's gonna become huge and all that." So this was like her first like real leading performance. It's got a lot of like creepier vibes. It's got like, you know, a dark nefarious mystery. It's got a creepy neighbor. It's hints of like a lot of darker themes and all that. So yeah, it's definitely I've heard it's a hell of a creepy movie, but it works, and it also
Okay. And
yeah.
I mean, I think did the Academy recognize her the year before for Taxi Driver?
Possibly.
Okay, because I know
Possibly.
I know that was like one of her first roles was Taxi Driver.
She might have gotten a Golden Globe for Best New Star, but I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. 'Cause, I mean,
I did see this one. I don't know. This was another one I couldn't get into.
But yeah. Yeah, it's definitely from what I've heard, it's a very like weird and disturbing film. But yeah, it's but it got a lot of love surrounding it. It had a lot to say. It had a lot of great themes that people identified with and whatnot. So yeah. And Jodie Foster's like first real leading performance, so there was that as well.
that's true, yeah.
So yeah. Then we have Martin. This is probably, honestly, this might be my favorite vampire movie of all time. It's just like the way it interprets the vampire mythos. Again, it's one of those things where I think the Academy would like it because, I feel like they would be in this alternate reality. They would be into like reinventing a mythos. They would be like, okay, what did you do new here? What did you do creatively? And I think they would really like that. It's just such a like creative and intriguing film, and it was just so well done. And you don't know, like, you never really like find out, is he a vampire, is he not? It's just one of those things that is owed to an interpretation depending on the viewer, and I think it just does so much right. And overall, just who is the main actor? I always forget his name. I think it's hang on, because I want to make sure to get it right. John Amplas. John Amplas did a really great job. Like, it was funny because George Romero originally envisioned him as like a Martin, as a much older character, but then he saw this kid and he's like, this kid has to be the fucking main villain. And he just seems like one of those characters that's like wise beyond his years, and he definitely feels like an older individual, but like holding on to like the naivety of a kid. So it just like overall, it just like really works, and it does so much new with the vampire mythos. And I think George Romero, I believe George Romero did state that like about a decade before he died, I think he reiterated time and time again this was his favorite movie out of his entire filmography. So yeah, it does a lot right, and it does a lot of things creatively, and I think they would be into that.
I'm glad you recommended this movie to me because it really is a great film.
Yeah. They found they found an entire film reel and of this movie, and a lot of people suspected like, oh, we're gonna see like a full version of this, because originally it's supposed to be like 2.5 hours to 3 hours long. So like, all right, great, but it was bought by a private collector, and that's it. That's all we got for that. So, oh well. But overall, still a great movie despite that. Next is The Sentinel. I don't know much about this movie, but I have heard about it, and I've heard it's very good. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton to say about it. I've just heard it's a very great movie, and a lot of people liked it for the time. I believe, it's, it had a lot of like, it had a stacked cast. Like it had, and it's like about like demonic stuff. It's like, it's said to be like a gateway to hell and all that. So it's got Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum, John Carradine, Jerry Orbach, Beverly D'Angelo, Tom Berenger. So it has like all these like really great like people who would go on to do great stuff, and then as well as people great for the time. So yeah, I think this is definitely one of those movies that's like, I feel like would be, again, it would feed into like what the Academy would like. It's like demonic stuff and all that. So yeah, that's what I think about the Sentinel. Speaking of the Omen, Rob, I think you have something to say about this one.
Okay. All right. So funny story. My growing up, my mom was always the horror parent. You know, she's the one that got me into it. However, she and my dad saw this movie not too long after they got married. And let's just say this movie is the reason why my dad does not like horror, never liked horror, doesn't like horror movies, you know? Because it pretty much I think what it was one of those where it's like, because even like in the 70s, how today's the jump scares pretty much just take over horror, like a lot of bad horror, you know? Well, I mean, even in the 70s, there were some jump scare kind of thing. And my dad hated those kinds of movies where it was just, and I think the scene with the pole that pretty much impaled the priest, I think that pretty much horrified him. So, and my dad's not even religious. My dad was never even religious either. But I mean, let's just say this is the reason why my dad didn't like horror movies in the day.
Yeah.
This is a film that, while I don't think it's overrated at all, it's still not one that I love. There's nothing I hate about the characters or the story, but ironically, the thing I love about it most is the main theme.
Oh yeah, that's Jerry Goldsmith.
But I would,
Yeah.
but this is like what I was going back to when
One
I
of the
was talking
greatest
about when I was
movies.
talking about Amityville Horror. Like it seems like the 70s horror, a lot of it was like revolving around supernatural and demonic possessions kind of thing, you know. So this would tie into that kind of thing. So
and it's something that they would like. It's got a great cast. The kid is so fucking creepy. It's you know, I would say the sequel is surprisingly pretty good, but yeah, the original is just a great and amazing movie. It's
a remake though.
But I think,
although sadly I remember like when I was in high school, I remember seeing the remake with my mom. So I mean, I haven't seen it in so long. I remember liking it back then, but then again, I'd had shit taste.
Hated it. Like Liev Schreiber.
Well, I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters.
Oh yeah,
so I don't. I'm pretty sure I would hate the remake now if I saw it.
Liev Schreiber is the only good thing in it. Like the kid that plays Damien isn't even creepy at all.
Yeah, and it's a shame that David Thewlis was also in it because he's usually a great actor. But yeah, the original is fantastic.
I just learned this. I mean, yeah, the Omen is excellent. This did when I think this one got nominated for 2 Oscars. It won for Best Original Score.
Yes, it did win. So there, I thought people would know that, so I didn't mention it. But yes, it did. That's what, like, a lot of, you know, like something like this, it would make sense, as well as another 70s movie that I think we all know what I'm insinuating with that one. Yeah. But yeah, so this is like one of the more obvious ones to be nominated because it already had the horror movie Academy well-liked clout. So there is that. So this one is a fairly obvious one. Then we have The Tenant. Unfortunately, it's a Roman Polanski movie, and he even stars in it. But yes, fuck Roman Polanski. He's a fucking horrible, deplorable sack of shit. However, I have heard that this is a genuinely great and creepy film. I will never watch it because fuck you, Roman Polanski. But I have heard it's great. Bruce Campbell gave his seal of approval, actually. So, you know, I trust him, and I feel like, you know, they liked another one of Roman Polanski's earlier movies, and they still like him after he, you know, raped a 13-year-old girl. So I feel like that they would nominate. Yes, and I feel like they would still nominate this, and you know, it's one of those like psychological movies, so I feel like they would be into that. So it's got like the directing clout and all of that as well. So yeah, I went with The Tenant.
What's funny is I watched Chinatown before I even knew Roman Polanski directed it.
Yeah,
that's nuts because that movie's great.
Yeah, I mean, many of his movies are great. Carrie, this was an obvious one. This was the first ever, adaptation of a Stephen King novel. It was the Brian De Palma movie that caused him to like become a household name.
It was his first book as Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was Stephen
Technically,
King's.
his first ever story was Rage,
Yes.
which is a Richard Bachman story. Side note, I'm going to sound like assistant bastard here, but Rage, it was banned after Columbine. I think that book is fucking funny.
I own it, actually. I got
So
an old
funny.
I got an old iteration of the Bachman books, and I really
have it
want to
too.
read it to see how it is, especially with you saying how terrible it is. I'm really curious.
It's just
now.
funny, man. It's so funny.
But yeah, Carrie, this is a classic. It's that cast. A lot of people. It was beloved, and it's still beloved to this day. Even though I prefer the remake, I think it's a much better movie. More in tune with the original novel, I feel. This is still like Brian De Palma took the core of the novel, made it into a horror story rather than a satirization of bullying. But yeah, it's still, it was a great movie for its time, and it's still great to this day.
Yeah, that's
even though they
exactly my
spoiled the entire movie in the marketing for whatever reason, which became a thing in every Carrie adaptation since then.
Oh, John, don't forget the mother at the end getting stabbed and having orgasm.
Dude,
Piper
this is gonna be
Laurie. I know
controversial.
she's like an amazing actress and whatever, but that was just fucking hilarious.
It's gonna be controversial to say. I actually think her performance throughout the entire movie is god awful.
It's a little bit much. I would say I think Julianne Moore gave a much better and more ground. I think everything about the remake is so much better than this movie. I think they really nailed
I
it.
had the same issue with is that they focus more on trying to make a horror film than trying to make a movie about the dangers of bullying. Like Carrie only gets bullied in this movie, I think, once, like the whole shower period scene.
No, I wouldn't say it's once, because Pig's Blood side and the Plug It Ups and the Plug It Up scene, you do see her get mocked in the scene where the professor mocks her in the class. You see the custodian wiping off Carrie White shit off the wall.
Yeah.
So you do see it. I do like the remake, but I can tell it was a victim of a lot of reshoots because for some reason the studio wanted to make it like so much like the 70s movie. Honestly, because I know there's a director's cut that included a lot more stuff from the book. I want to see that version.
Yeah. Hashtag release the Pierce cut.
Assuming that footage was even shot. We don't know if it was shot. Or was it?
No, a lot of it was shot, because you can see on the IMDb page, there's like a massive amount of uncredited actors who did not end up appearing in the movie. But it's unlikely we'll ever get to see that version, because MGM they're fucking assholes. So, or was it MGM or was it another one? I don't remember what studio it was. Ironically, not
MGM.
Warner Brothers, but
1976 studio.
But yeah, Carrie, beloved classic. Moving on. Then another great one.
It was MGM.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Alice, Sweet Alice.
Fucking love this movie.
This was a great movie. This had a very like anti-religious message, I feel. It was, it's got child murder. Boom, you got me there. Anti-religion. Boom, you got me again. And, it's just like it's like the atmosphere is excellent. And I feel like, this is one of those cases where, again, the Academy would like it because I think, like, it has a message to say, but it's also like, it's not like in your face. It's not like totally batshit insane or something like that, but it works for what it is. And Alice, Sweet Alice, it's definitely an underrated gem. I feel like not a lot of people talk about this movie, but Alice, Sweet Alice is definitely a really, really great movie. So yeah, I think that they would most definitely nominate this one. Devin, what do you have to say about this?
With the religious tone, yeah, they would totally eat this movie up. because I know we brought up. Oh yeah, they love stuff with demons and cults and stuff. They definitely like stuff that have like a religious tone to it.
Yeah, most.
But
Definitely.
this is another movie I love. I watched this movie. I first watched it when I was 15.
Mm,
And I fell in love with it instantly.
yeah,
Because
definitely.
you guys gotta remember, I was raised Catholic, and this was around
all of us were.
this was around the age and that was around the age where I abandoned my faith.
Yeah. So
I mean, I wasn't born Catholic, but I know my grandparents, my dad's parents, they were Baptist. So, but
right. Okay. So yeah, just great movie, and it's underrated gem, and I feel like the Academy would like a lot of things of this movie. And then this one is definitely the weird one of the bunch. Who Can Kill a Child? It is essentially Children of the Corn before Children of the Corn. It's a Spanish movie, if you can tell from the title, on the poster. So essentially, a bunch of tourists arrive on an island where all the children have gone crazy and murdered the adults. So yeah, it's essentially, I feel like that they would trying to reach more of that foreign audience. They would nominate this, and I feel like it's just like a inherently intriguing premise. Like whenever there's like something contrary that happens to a child, like I don't know, I just feel like that's like a really intriguing concept, whether they die, labor, killing, evil, like I feel like that's definitely a thing. And I feel like it could feed into like when they nominated like the Omen of like an evil child. I think they would maybe like correlate that as well. So yeah, I think Who Can Kill a Child, I think, would be nominated. Then we
I know Who Can Kill a Child. Albert Fish.
Sure. I don't know who that is. Anyway, Jaws. Yeah, Jaws was the first summer blockbuster. It nailed so many different genres, but at the end of the day, it is still horror. But it does have like themes of adventure, of action, of thriller, crime a little bit. Although that's more in the book. But it nailed everything, and it was like just like Roy Scheider was fucking supremely excellent. Robert Shaw, amazing. Richard Dreyfuss, also fantastic. Like the entire cast was brilliant. Their chemistry with one another was absolutely excellent. I also watched the play on Broadway, The Shark is Broken, which was damn good, by the way. But I think it nailed everything. It nailed fucking everything, and
it did.
And I'm pretty sure Jaws was actually nominated for Best Picture, if I remember correctly.
I think it was.
I think it was too.
So yeah,
but I would say I actually remember like when COVID actually happened, and the movie theaters were shut down. One movie theater had like a weekend event where you pay a ticket and you get 2 movies, and it's like at a drive-in kind of thing. Like they set up a big screen and all, sit in your car kind of thing. I know that Ben and I, we went to see Jaws for one of them because Ben had not seen Jaws at the time. I remember seeing Jaws for the first time like on TV when I was a kid or something, but Ben hadn't seen the whole thing. So we watched. So that was one movie we did, and the other one was oh my god, Playing with Fire. Fuck that movie. But it's like, hey, we had to watch that just to get to Jaws. So
yeah,
and funny enough is that was like a week before we decided, you know what, to hell with COVID, we're going to go to the beach anyway.
Yeah.
So a week later, we went to the beach after seeing Jaws.
So also Jaws won 3 awards: film editing, score, and sound. And it was nominated for Best Picture. So this seemed like an obvious choice,
And for me, it's like, it's another time we're going to say, I'm not saying it just because it's Jaws, but I think this wins 1975. Just for all the same reasons you said, because it's more than just horror. It nails a lot of other genres very effectively.
I absolutely agree. And what I've always loved about this movie was, the shark not working worked out in the movie's favor because
Yep.
when you see the shark's point of view, that makes it a lot more effective,
Yeah.
a lot more scary.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, out of any shark movie, and I know that's obvious because it's freaking Jaws, but that one scene in particular where the guy's attacked on the boat and you see the shark coming in the water to get him, scariest thing in any shark movie.
Yeah. I don't
This
know.
is the only good shark
Sharknado,
movie.
that's pretty scary, all right?
Dude, Sharknado 2 is scary. It has fucking Jared Fogle in it.
Yeah. Oof. And it has John Hurt in it. Ugh, creepy. Anyway, next one is the Stepford Wives. Again, another
I haven't
classic.
seen this in forever.
Yeah.
My mom loved this movie.
Yeah, that's alarming. But yeah, it's definitely like it feels like almost like a prestigious horror movie, but also at the same time like it definitely but there's like kind of an even balance. It feels like prestigious, but at the same time it's like lower indie, and then but at the same time it has a lot to say about like traditional roles and femininity and like the wives are especially on the cusp of like this was like right after like the whole bra burning of the 60s and like second wave feminism and all that. So like it was definitely like a really like great and intriguing like creepy ass movie about like going back to that point where you have no choice but to strip away your rights as a woman and you get like nothing. It definitely does it a hell of a lot better than fucking Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, I fucking said it. So Stepford Wives, it has, a lot to say, but at the same time, it doesn't talk down to its audience. But I feel like that the Academy would like that. They would like, the idea of has like a woman's role in society type of thing, and I feel like that they would definitely like that. And fucking creepy ass ending, man. Fucking like it's so normal, but it's so creepy with how the movie ends. Like it works, and I really appreciated this movie when I first watched it. I was like, damn, that's fucking scary. So Stepford Wives definitely did a lot right for the time. Fuck the remake, fuck the sequels. So yeah, stick with the original, and it's a great time.
There was a remake.
Yeah, by Frank Oz with Nicole Kidman.
I was gonna say Nicole Kidman is in it.
So. AMC's favorite girl.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Heartbreak feels good in these nuts, bitch. Anyway, next is Deep Red, a Dario Argento movie.
Good movie.
Another classic. I feel like it could have been a little bit better in some areas, but overall, I still feel it's it's Dario Argento. Not a lot to say. He's great at what he does. Then here's it's a Japanese horror movie. Under the blossoming cherry trees. It definitely. This is definitely one of the ones I don't know a ton about. It's a Masahiro Shinoda production, and he I think there's a couple more of his films are going to show up here. But it's definitely about like loss of control and that sort of thing. I think they would be into that, as well as the foreign film concept. And like from what I saw of like the reception, I'm like, all right, this seems like something that is definitely a well done, well made movie. And then on top of that, it's it's again creepy vibes and all that stuff. So yeah, not a lot to say about this one, but got to give it the time of day, and I think they would nominate it. Then finally, we have the Peter Weir film, Picnic at Hanging Rock. It's more of a drama mystery than horror, but I feel like they would like skirt some things about it because it's definitely creepy. Like they just disappear, and then it's like a very like haunting kind of ghostly movie, but I don't think it's like about ghosts. I have it. I have yet to see it. It might be. I think it might be on my list later for this week. But I think I believe it did get some accolades. I don't know if it got like awards. I mean, it got like a BAFTA award, but I don't think it got nominated for. I don't think it got nominated for like Academy Award or anything. Yeah, it didn't. But yeah, it did win a BAFTA, so that was pretty good. But yeah, overall, very and it's also a period piece, so that definitely helps matters. It's got it's got some good actors. It's got Jackie Weaver in it, so and Peter Weir would go on to have a very illustrious career. So yeah, I think that they would definitely be into this just for the period piece aspect, and it does have some horror aspects as well. So next I went with the comedy direction here. I feel like that this is something the Academy would do purely on the grounds that it homages what came before. It's commemorative towards the Universal monster movies, and as we have said, whenever see you later, Devin. Thank you for that. But yeah, Young Frankenstein, it commemorates what came before, as and I feel like, as me and Rob have said many a times, whenever it's like about filmmaking, the Academy usually goes, or even though this isn't specifically about behind the scenes filmmaking, that kind of thing, it still like commemorates filmmaking. So I feel like that they would like that. Plus, Gene Wilder is great. It's just a well-made movie. It's got like decent atmosphere. Not gonna lie, it's mainly a comedy, but it technically falls under the horror comedy banner. So they might have, gone with that. So
I could see them. This could be something that they could probably be able to go with or something. Even though, like you said, it is a horror comedy, but then again, we've had picks that were also horror comedy, and this probably won't be the last one. Nudge, nudge. But anyway, this could be I'm trying to think, was Mel Brooks, was he well known at this point?
Yeah, I think Blazing Saddles came out before this.
Because I was going to say, because I think this came out like the same year as Blazing Saddles. I just couldn't remember which one came first.
Blazing Saddles came first.
Okay. So Blazing Saddles was first, and then okay. But I mean, I think they could probably be able to do a lot of appreciation with Mel Brooks and all. Like, he was well known with that.
Yeah.
And seeing how that this, like you said, this pretty much does pay homage to like some of the classic classic monster movies that came before it,
Yeah,
I think so.
So it's Blazing Saddles came out the same year, and then the 12 Chairs and the Producers came out before this.
Oh,
okay. So yeah, I think he was relatively well known, not super well known, but I think this and Blazing Saddles coming out the same year definitely launched him into a little bit more of a beloved sort of nature. So yeah, I think, but yeah, Young Frankenstein, it's a classic and beloved. So
it's an awesome movie.
Then I have, Black Christmas, another one of those cases, pretty much what Halloween should have been in terms of not getting any sequel, nothing happening. You don't know what happens. He just gets away with it. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. That's all you fucking need, my guys. That's all you fucking need.
But this did get a sequel.
We don't talk about that, but yeah. So I think Black Christmas, it's definitely one of those cases where it's, it is an indie production. It's a Canadian production.
Yeah.
They might have been into it. I think it just, there was acclaim around it, but I think at the same time, I think they would have just like nominated because it's just a genuinely good movie. It doesn't go heavily into the gore. It definitely follows those Halloween aspects of, less is more type of thing. It definitely has like a grounded sort of relationship that keeps it all like at the core of it, where it like works. It like it bounds the movie together, even though you wouldn't think you would care, but you do. the superior Bob Clark Christmas movie. But yeah, Black Christmas. It had a stacked cast, and I think
And
they
then
would nominate it for
I,
being a great movie.
yeah, I think so too. I think that this is something they could go with. In fact, I know that Ben and I, this is one movie that Ben and I we pretty much watch like around around the Christmas time, you know, and on top of like of course the Christmas classics, you know, like Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone, etc. This is honestly one that me and him actually watch together, so have a good time. But yeah, you got some known actors and actresses being in this, and just the fact that it's just an awesome time. So
Yeah.
you know, not really much else to say.
Yeah.
Now, what was that?
Jesus. But anyway, next one I have is Phantom of the Paradise. This is a Brian De Palma film. It pretty much combines Picture of Dorian Gray, Faust, and Phantom of the Opera into one like rock opera-esque kind of movie. It like kind of is similar to Rocky Horror Picture Show, but like way better. And I think William Finley has a sympathetic but creepy performance. Paul Williams is fucking phenomenal as the villain. It definitely has like weirder aspects, but I feel like I think they would nominate it on the grounds of like, again, the creativeness. I think they would nominate, like, it's just, and it's a great movie, but the creativeness of it, I think they would definitely really like. I highly recommend it, by the way. It's so fucking good. It's so good. It might be my favorite Brian De Palma film, and that's saying something. So, yeah, Phantom of the Paradise is great stuff. Next is It's Alive. I was unsure if I should have added this or not because it's a cult movie. It's a Larry Cohen movie. But at the same time, like, again, there wasn't a ton of great stuff this year, the 74. But at the same time, I love this movie. I feel like there's more to it than just like, oh, it's a killer baby. I feel like there's more like, it's like about the character of Frank, like going through all of this, and the way they handle it is just so grounded, and like with how like his sanity is unfolding outside of any of this. Like, this is his child, but he doesn't want to like have it be his child because of like the media circus that's like surrounding it. And it's just like, it's a very in-depth character piece, and I feel like more than just the killer baby movie. So that's what the sequels kind of went with, like, oh, it's killer baby, oh, this time it's twins, this time it's a fucking island. It's like, all right. But so yeah, I think I forget who plays Frank in this movie, but It's Alive is so much better than what people think it is. But yeah, John P. Ryan plays Frank, and he did such a phenomenal job here. And yeah, he was definitely just great here, and I feel like it works more than what people think it is. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Then finally, I went with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now I know this is a classic. It's beloved. It got a franchise. It's still pretty much unless you have like a soft spot for the sequel, it's pretty much considered the only good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie out in terms of sequels, because you do have the remake that a lot of people like, but the original, it was tough because it's like, I don't know if this would be nominated because it is kind of disturbing. It's very like, it feels like a documentary. It's just, it might be a little bit too disturbing for the Academy, but at the same time, it's just like it. I feel like it did get like a lot of positive reviews for the time, and I think, as well as the fact that like it does like hold back in a lot of areas, and yeah, it's just an overall great movie. Rob, I know you've seen this, so
Oh
curious to
yeah,
know
oh
your
yeah, oh
thoughts.
yeah. Of course, I've seen this. So, yeah, I mean, this is, this probably could be something that maybe they can go with, because I mean, it did get positive, like you said, it did get positive reviews. I don't know if Toby Hooper was a name at the time. Was he a name?
No, he
direct-
wasn't. This was like his
Oh.
first major.
So this is his first one, yeah. But I mean, I could probably this probably could be able to be something they can go with, but I guess it all kind of depends. Like you said, this was more of like exploitation, so
Yeah.
this was considered more exploitation. I don't know how the Academy feels about horror exploitation, so but
Yeah.
maybe they could probably be able to go with it. It did get some good reception, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean it's considered a classic today, but I'm saying like for 1974, yeah.
Yeah. So
Pretty
yeah, move.
overrated movie. Like
What?
it's pretty overrated. Like the remake is infinitely better in my opinion. It loses that feel the original had, but it's just better written and better made.
Gotcha.
Better characters.
Yeah. Also, get that fan fixed, my guy. I don't know what's going on with that. I would say
I don't know
get
what's going on with it either. It just does this.
get your computer checked because that doesn't sound normal. But yeah,
Yeah.
next one. This was the obvious
The
one.
obvious one.
What the fuck do we have to fucking say about this one?
Exactly.
It was considered by many years to be the scariest movie ever made. It was considered to be
I don't
the
get it.
greatest horror film ever made. And even though I don't agree,
I don't either.
was nominated, it got beloved, it got a ton of awards. It was it like caused people to faint and pass
Exactly.
out. All that
Exactly.
shit. This was the most obvious one to nominate.
Not to mention this is one that got a shit ton of nominations, including it got nominated for Best Picture.
It did. Yep.
And I think the only one that because it got a shit ton of nominations and it only won 2: Best Sound and Best Screenplay based on material from another medium.
Adapted screenplay.
Well, that's what it was called.
Yeah, I know. But Ellen Burstyn, Jason Miller, Linda Blair, Friedkin, they all got nominated.
Yeah.
That like it got like 10 to 50, like 10 or 12 nominations. So
I'll say this. This is a movie I could say that I more kind of like what you said about the Lost Boys, the last stream.
Mhm.
It's a movie that I could say I more respect than I could say that I actually like.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
honestly, it's a decent movie, but it's a tad overrated if you ask me.
A tad. Very overrated.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I mean, Mark and
movie of
Devin
all
aren't
time?
here.
I
We
don't
can
think
talk
so.
shit on it. It's fine.
I don't
I was
love
gonna
it
say-
either, but I wholly respect the legacy.
Yeah.
And fuck the Believer.
No, Believer, greatest movie ever made. Anyway. But yeah, Exorcist. I prefer Exorcist 3, but that's just me.
Yeah, I do too. I prefer Exorcist 3.
But yeah. Then The Wicker Man, I felt like this was another obvious one. It was a cult hit, but I think it had some it had Christopher Lee, had Brett Eklund, and like it had some good casting. And I think this was just one of the cases where it was just like it was so good that it's just like, all right, we gotta fucking nominate this one. And even Christopher Lee, till his death, said this was not only his favorite movie, but probably the best movie he ever did. So, like that's saying something.
Even
Yeah, I
more
would
than
say-
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I would say, like, I can honestly see this being another contender, mainly because it does follow like cults and all the cults and just like things like that. And plus, it's a musical, isn't it?
No.
I thought it was musical.
Nope. I mean, it has music in it, but it's not really a musical.
I just thought maybe I might have been thinking of something else. So,
But yeah, Wicker Man, great stuff. Great stuff.
Understatement of the millennium to say that this is better than the remake.
No, yeah, that's fucking obvious. The
Well,
remake is one of the
that's
worst
obvious.
movies ever made.
not the
One of the funniest-
base, not the base.
It's one of the funniest movies ever made.
Not according to Mark. He was just like, I'm fucking bored, man. Fuck this movie. It's not even funny. Not even Nicolas Cage could save this movie. So, you know, but we're talking about the original. The original is great, fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Everything
is awesome.
great
It is
about
awesome.
Wonderful movie. Next is Don't Look Now. This was another one that got a lot of critical acclaim at the time. You know, Donald Sutherland was, you know, beloved actor, and this was more of a grounded look at like how, you know, grief and how this couple is dealing with the death of their child. And you know, there's also like ideas of like psychic stuff and kind of supernatural, but like not totally. So it's very like an in-depth grounded look on like the loss of a child, but like the way they do it was pretty. I don't love this movie, but like from how people have talked about it, yeah, I could see this getting nominated. And you know, how they handle everything was, from what other people said, well done, well liked for the time. That's how I would be nominating this. I was rather unimpressed with this one, but it is a classic. So I'm like, all right, let me bring that into there. So, but yeah. Next up we have The Legend of Hell House. This is definitely a weirder one. But it does have like, you know, it has like a haunting kind of vibe to it, very spooky. But yeah, so it's got, you know, Roddy McDowell and, you know, Pamela Franklin, Clive Reville. It's got a good cast. I haven't seen this one yet. I think I'm watching it later this month. I don't remember. But it does have like a, you know, grounded look on ghosts. So that's what I was kind of aiming for with this one. Plus Roddy McDowell. Who doesn't love Roddy McDowell, you know? I literally started watching this movie like an hour ago, but I had to, you know, get on here to do this. So unfortunately, I've only seen like the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie. It's good so far. I can't judge the entire movie, but this was another one of like Brian De Palma before he got really famous with Carrie. But I think they might have liked like this movie had like a lot of, you know, feminine aspects to it. Although I will say Margot Kidder trying to do a French accent is no. It sounds Russian. I don't know what, Brian, I don't know what direction you were giving her, because that shit was not French. I would know. I took French for like 7 years. I've been to France. That's not a French accent. I'm sorry. Like I'm pretty uncultured, but I have ears, so you know. But despite that, first 20 minutes are good. Outside of that, the first like 20 minutes are good. But yeah, I can't judge it, but I have heard that this is a great movie. So moving on. Next is Deliverance. I know, like this is one of the cases of kind of like Silence of the Lambs, where it's like, oh, it's not really a horror movie. It's really a thrill. No, it's a fucking horror movie. Okay, this is like anybody's worst nightmare fucking come true. Like is stuck in the middle of East bumfuck nowhere, where you're just surrounded by like fucking batshit insane hicks.
Exactly.
Fuck no, that's scary as fucking shit. So, Rob, didn't you see this movie?
I did see this movie.
So I haven't seen it yet. Why don't you talk about it?
This, but yeah, this does. I actually remember seeing this, weirdly enough, with my mom when she was introducing me to horror. Weird. I remember this honestly does feel like it is more into horror. So it's more at horror, you know, because honestly, just the fact that you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you got, I mean, this was honestly before Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where like a bunch of like
Mhm.
just scary, just like a lot of scary, creepy imagery kind of thing, where like a bunch of strangers can kidnap you and just things, and just make your life a hell, you know. So it's
Yeah. Just for the hell of it.
yeah, exactly, for the hell of it. So it's pretty much
Yeah.
it's similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre before that movie even existed.
Yeah, and it was, you have the guy playing the banjo.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like you have that scene and squee for me, squee like a pig. Like I've seen that scene. Like I've seen like those like classic, kind of scenes, but I have yet to see the movie. I've been kind of scared to see the movie because it's just like, I don't know. But it's got Burt Reynolds, it's got John Voight. It just like, just like overall like creepy as hell, and doesn't let up kind of thing. So yeah, it's damn this. Damn, like I gotta watch it, but I'm like scared to. But yeah, Deliverance, great stuff. Then we have The Devil. It's a Polish movie from 72, and it's a period piece. It deals with the devil. I thought that was enough. It did get some good ratings on Letterboxd and other such rating sites, but I was like, all right, I feel like it checked some boxes. That's pretty much what I was kind of gauging for here. It's a little bit hard to talk about it, but yeah. Oh, there he is. Hey, Mark, you just got in towards the end, but we got you. But yeah, so we're talking about The Devil. I have not seen it, but I have heard some good things, and it checks some boxes. So next up is Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy. Now, this was originally going to be his like big magnum opus, Kaleidoscope. It was one of the most insane fucking ideas like he ever did, but the studio was like, no, this is fucking insane. Don't do that. So he had to like kind of sanitize it a little bit, and this is what he got. But it was still like considered like one of the best movies of his later career, like post like 50s and 60s, which were kind of his height. But it's like it's kind of an easy go-to because it's Alfred Hitchcock. I've heard great things about Frenzy. Mark, have you seen this one?
I have not, but I could totally see them nominating this because it's later in his career, just like they've done that before. They did it with Cecil B. DeMille, with The Greatest Show on Earth, which was not a good movie, but I mean, they nominated and he won just because, they wanted him to get an Oscar. So I could totally see them nominating this just to say, hey, we need to give Hitchcock an Oscar.
Yeah. So, but I have heard good things. Like I have heard it's a genuinely good movie.
Yeah.
So not like one of his, like it's not Psycho, it's not Vertigo, it's not The Birds, but I've heard it's very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's Hitchcock. Of course you gotta, So yeah, that's feel like a good go-to. And then Tales from the Crypt. This was an Amicus production. Amicus was just cranking out anthology movies in like the late 60s and early 70s. No, this is not the this has nothing to do with the TV show of the same name. It's like kind of has like it like borrowed it, like I think it was like kind of based on the same comics a little bit, but it's like outside of the name and like the fact that there's a crypt keeper, it has little resemblance to one another. But I've heard great things about this. And this was and it was directed by Freddie Francis. He, all-time one of the greatest cinematographers who's ever lived. But he did have some good directing jobs under his name. So, yeah, I think this would definitely be nominated. There was a lot of, I've heard this is great. It's got some period aspects, and it's British and they love British shit. So there's that as well. So yeah, Tales from the Crypt. I am gonna see this later on. I think tomorrow actually I'm gonna be watching this, maybe in 2 days. But yeah, Tales from the Crypt, great stuff. Then is this I feel like checks a lot of boxes. It's a weird movie, but it is a period piece, so they like that. It's Tale of Two Sisters. It's got a lot of like feminine shit going on, so I feel like they would like that. A good classic tale of like revenge. But yeah, Clara is like kind of like this like ditzy, naive kind of sister, while Victoria is like like jealous of like everything she has. Their father left everything to her, so it's just a good classic tale of revenge. It is a Czechoslovakian movie. It just goes to show how old that is, because the idea of Czechoslovakia still hadn't ceased to exist yet. So, but yeah, Morgiana, period piece, they like feminine stuff, good tale of revenge. I feel like they would, that's kind of up their alley. But and on top of that, it's just a fucking amazing fucking movie. Like, it's slow, but it's good. Like, if you want to see a good slow burn kind of atmospheric weird movie, then I would say I would recommend this one. But I think that they would definitely nominate it. Next up is Willard. This was it was just a case of like, this got like a lot of acclaim at the time. I prefer the remake. I think the remake was overall a little bit better. However, it's based on a book. It received like a couple of awards, but it was like very like it in terms of like, if I were to guess, like, this would be like the popular vote, because it fucking was huge for its time. It's so much it got a sequel. Like, the sequel had a song which went super like famous because it was sung by a young Michael Jackson, I think right after he split from the Jackson 5. So yeah, but like Willard at the time was just like, holy shit, it launched Bruce Davison's career. Yeah, it had a lot of, it's got Ernest Borgnine. It had a lot of great aspects, and and they also love based on a book kind of thing, and it's got some great actors in there. So yeah, I think
I haven't seen this one, but I did see the remake. So, and the remake is awesome.
Yeah,
I think this is the better version overall, but I do think Kristen Glover is the better Willard.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Willard here at Bruce Davison's is just like, he's a relatively normal guy who's just like kind of weird. Crispin Glover is fucking scary in the remake. He can get so fucking creepy there, but I feel like with what they were doing here, it worked. But then what they were doing with the remake also worked. But yeah, even then, Willard for the time was definitely very like popular for its time. So yeah, I think they would definitely go for this one.
I don't like them killing animals, so that is my taboo, but that's just it.
Blood on Satan's Claw. This was like one of the cases of like, devil worshippers, and I feel like they would kind of be into that. It does kind of go into exploitation a little bit. But it does I feel like it still takes a grounded enough look to it that they would like kind of respect it. And it is like a huge cult classic. I know it's harder to gauge that because, it received its audience later on, but I still think at the time it still would have gotten some good reviews and whatnot. So yeah, this was like, it was like post Witchfinder General, where it was like everything, it was like, oh, it was about like witches, devil worshiping, all that stuff, and that really like launched like the whole folklore horror kind of vibes of of this kind of caliber. But yeah, I think they would be into that. This is a tougher one. Again, I was really trying to find the best one. 71 was kind of a weak year, not gonna lie. It's a Jesus Franco movie. He's wasn't exactly a beloved director for his time, but he did do a lot of creative shit. So I'll give him that. And this is certainly creative. So it is a classic vampire story. Maybe they might have been into that. And at the time, they was like the counterculture vibe was like kind of taking over in the Academy. Like things were turning around, so like maybe they would have been like would have had some like younger voters in there that would have like gone for something like this. I don't think it would have won. Obviously, that's up to you guys, but I could
I've never heard of this one. I'm just reading the description. I was like, is this like a vampire porno or something?
No, it's not a porno. It's just she's a lesbian. That's all. But yeah, weirder. I'm aware, but maybe there.
I don't know. The only problem I see is like Midnight Cowboy. There, he couldn't even get away with. He had to make an entire subtext. They were supposed to be gay, but I mean, it's in Midnight Cowboy, but he couldn't even get away with that. Like he had to like like when they figured it out that they were supposed to be gay, the actors, you know, John Voight and Dustin Hoffman, they said, "Hey, why aren't these guys sleeping in the same bed? Aren't they supposed to be gay?" He's like, shut up. We're not, dear God, it was hard enough to get this approved as it is, you know? So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they would actually.
Yeah, but again, I was like really trying to find stuff. Like I
I
was like
get you.
really
I
looking
get you,
all
yeah.
over. So
Yeah.
I'm sure like somebody who knows even more encyclopedic horror knowledge than me would probably know something of a hell of a lot better. But again, there's only so many things you can nominate per year.
Yeah.
So
it's now time to go lay in bed.
Next we have the Abominable Dr. Phibes. I think it's just like basis of Vincent Price. That's kind of all you really needed, the Vincent Price. Yeah. I think that's enough, don't you think?
Yeah.
Vincent Price is a god. Okay? So
he is.
But yeah, this is just like a good classic, you know, Tale of Revenge. It's like this was Dr. Phibes was the Mr. Freeze before Mr. Freeze. He's like, oh, what did Mr. Freeze do? He fucking like robbed a bank. This guy's like, nah, fuck that shit. I'm going to personally murder every single one of the doctors that could have fucking done something to save my wife. Didn't. So I'm going to go out and fucking murder them all because fuck you. So Dr. Phibes, he has balls. And again, Vincent Price. So it does have like a lot of dark humor as well. It's very weird, very creative with its premise. They might have had something there. So yeah, Abominable Dr. Phibes is so fun. I just watched the sequel today, not nearly as good, but this was still a hell of a fun time. Then next up is Demons, not the Bava. I think it was a Bava, or I don't know if it was Bava or Lucio Fulci, but Demons, this is a Japanese horror movie. Yeah, I think you know, they would. I think Lamberto Bava did Demons, the 85 movie. It had nothing to do with this movie. You know, it's just like, again, good old classic Tale of Revenge, you know. I feel like, and yeah, I feel like that they would also, you know, definitely like you know, the more foreign film aspect to it. So there's that as well. Then I had Bird with the Crystal Plumage, again, Dario Argento. This was like his first movie, I think, or at least like his first major movie. Great movie. I think, you know, it's like it didn't totally launch the giallo, but I think it like at least popularized it. And it was definitely a good game of like cat and mouse, like of the guy trying to like go back to that night and trying it which is kind of reminiscent of Suspiria a little bit, where like Jessica Harper is like trying to remember what she said, like the blue flower or whatever the hell. You kind of have that aspect here as well, but I think done a little bit better here actually. It's just like he keeps going back, like trying to remember certain aspects so he can actually like solve this case and like solve like what actually happened. But yeah, I think good game of cat and mouse, definitely a lot of creepy aspects. I think this is the one where it was like they're stuck in like a dark like apartment or dark hotel room, and like he's like, you know, he's like, I see you, and he's like on the phone or something. I think that's what this movie was. I some of the Dario Argento movies kind of bleed together, but I think you know, they've nominated like pretty much every Dario Argento movie in this like what if alternate timeline. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Might as just go back to the first one as well. Yeah, overall great movie. I think I have this one on Blu-ray actually. Then The Vampire Lovers, you know, period piece. It's a little bit more exploitation, but again, I was really trying to find anything and everything. So, you know, there's only so much you can find in terms of best horror that's not like too derivative and not too like, because there were two movies that I had on here that was like way too much into like torture porn and that kind of thing. So there was that, but this was like tamer than those. So I'm like, all right, let me go with this one. But yeah, so
what were the other ones, if you don't mind me asking?
Mark of the Devil and something else I don't remember. But yeah, Mark of the Devil is like, it's pretty much like 90 minutes of torture porn. It's like, it's just like it's like witch finders just trying to fucking, you know, torture the hell out of people and just trying to figure out if they're witches or not. And it's just that's just the entire movie.
Pretty
So I'm like,
much.
I don't think, you know, they would go
So
for
that would be like Hostel before Hostel.
almost,
existed.
yeah. Then Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. I've heard great things about this movie. You know, surrealness, you know, existentialism, and, you know, experimental. I feel like at this time they would have maybe gone into eking more into those aspects. A lot of fantasy aspects with this one. I think this has been on my list for a while. I've just heard a lot of great things about it.
It just didn't have the title in it, so.
Yeah, this might have been like a popular parody title because it's a very strange title. But yeah, then we have that one. Then Witchhammer. Again, this was so this follows like what I was saying with Mark of the Devil, but again, it's a little bit more tame. But this like again followed Witchfinder General, which came out in I believe 68. I just watched it. It's a decent movie. Witchfinder General came out in 1968, and there was like in at least in Britain, because they could actually fucking get away with it. There was like a whole influx of like witch finding movies of like, you know, like overly exaggerated, heavily fictionalized, you know, historic pieces that are historical fiction that's like about, you know, how women were all people, but mostly women were like fucking tortured for, you know, being alleged witches when that was never the case. So it's just like some of them just knew how to swim. Crazy. But yeah, this does follow the period piece. It does follow like a historical aspect of, you know, even though it was heavily fictionalized, it does follow like this very like dark time in, you know, human history. And I feel like they would have, um, you know, they would have gone with that. And then finally, since I do plan to talk about other Jose Mojica Marin's films, this was allegedly the last of the Coffin Joe trilogy until it like revealed it wasn't actually, because he doesn't really appear in this movie that much. It was just like kind of, you know, he's just like kind of there as like a hallucinogenic like sequence kind of thing. But yeah, it does follow like some of the what was kind of going on with like experiments uh Montauk, New York, and that kind of thing, where it's like, oh, LSD, sleep deprivation, you know, think tank, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the water tank things, I forget what those are called, but yeah, so it's like a lot of like hallucinogenic kind of strange sequences. Again, I know this is probably not like stuff the Academy would actually vote for, but again, I had only so many to choose from. So I'm sure that I'm sure like I'll probably get a comment like, hey, you could have nominated this instead. But I was trying to nominate like good stuff a lot of people liked, not like weirder stuff that maybe they would have done. So there is that as well. So yeah, as time goes on, I'm probably gonna have less reasons for like, oh, the Academy would definitely nominate this, because as time goes on, it's less and less feasible. Because some of them, like for the 50s, that's gonna be next to impossible because all of them were like B movie science fiction crap, essentially. So just keep that in mind. I'll say it when we do those on Thursday and next week. So, and for the rest of the month. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that is it for the 70s. I think even though towards the end I was kind of trying to find the best I could find and didn't exactly like get there, but I still feel like there was a lot of great stuff this decade. I think one of the best, if not the best, decade of horror, decade of film. Um, but yeah, so obviously, as I keep saying, guys, post in the Google Forms. They're in the description below on what you think would be the best out of all of them. Maybe you agree with us, maybe you don't. You're like, oh, no, this wouldn't be nominated. This would be nominated. But you have the power to choose. So it's in the description below. Obviously, we'll see you next time. Um, it's gonna be, next time we're gonna be talking about the 60s, which is on Thursday at 8. So, keep all that in mind. We're gonna have a fun time with that. But yeah, so please, fill out those forums if you can. See you later.